everybody. Dumelang sawubona ndimacheroni ra lo cha. Welcome back to VTC Africa Developments, where your home is our pleasure. My name is Kay Lamini and I am your host. It is often said that it is best to buy property cash and not using a bond originator. Well, is it? Today, I'm joined by the gorgeous Andrea Underwood, who has vast experience in the property sector, particularly as a bond originator from Multinet. Taking off from our first episode, we've received a numerous amount of people that have been asking about the processes of buying property. Where do they start? How do they do the bond application? So I'm not an expert, but I've brought you on. Andrea to the rescue. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you for joining us today. You look gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
So, Andrea, I have been receiving a lot of questions as well. Even on my Instagram page, people have been asking, Kat, what do we do? We've seen the first episode, we've seen how you have explained the buyer's market, how Verissimo delved into the ins and outs of it. So how can you advise people? What can you say is the first thing that they need to do? Where do they start?
Okay, so basically the first question you actually want to ask yourself is whether you are credit worthy and what loan amount you can qualify for. We have to tackle those two questions first. And that's where you now will come to me at Multinet, where we're able to see what is your credit standing and as well whether your financial position allows you to purchase a property.
Why is it important for you to have a good credit record?
Well, that's a very important aspect, actually. A lot of people ask that question as well. But something we need to keep in mind is your credit score can tell us and the banks a lot about you as a customer. Okay. The banks look for someone who's got a really good credit history, who shows that they are able to maintain their payments timely every single month. Mm-hmm. So the banks call this actually your character. So, your character. So they're able to see how stable are you at maintaining your payments, okay, and whether the willingness to service your debt is there, all right? Okay. So because we look at your credit profile, we're able to see whether you are missing your payments or whether there's inconsistency. So actually what the banks are really looking for is a good track record.
Okay. But I've also, heard people say that they've been told, and actually we touched on this with Verissimo, but I think with someone with your experience as well, you can help us navigate this. But people have said that they have been advised to take 3 or 4 more credits to increase their chances of getting, a good credit score. Do you think it's the best way to do it?
Well, you know what? A lot of people have gone about it just to pick up their scores, and that is sometimes advisable. But I mean, we have had instances where people, what we call a thin bureau profile client, as someone who only has 1 or 2 debts on their name, we have been able to get them bonds before. Even young professionals, people who haven't built their credit yet, we have been able to get bonds before for people like that. But remember, the banks still need to see whether you are able to maintain good payment structures with financial institutions. So that's why they often ask that you must please build that, credit so that you are able to maintain or show that you are able to maintain payments.
Okay. And seeing that, you are from Multinet and I know you work very good with VTC Africa. You've helped a lot of people. And that's why we have so many handovers. Take notes. So with that being said, how have you navigated some of the, the applications that have come through? I'm sure it must have been 5 or 6 because firstly, Belcanto is sold out and quite a few units as well. So how were you able to balance the applications that were coming through? Because some people are actually reluctant to using bond originators because they assume that they're not fast enough. So how do you ensure that you attend to every application that comes with VTC Africa?
Well, I must be honest, at Multinet, we have really good support structure. We really do. They give us the tools to cope at Multinet. So, I mean, there's always readily help available at Multinet. But, I mean, I have been very fortunate in that aspect where I have been able to just keep on top of the bonds here at VTC. So how, I don't know, but I've been able to
long
maintain
hours
it.
as well.
Yeah, long hours, a lot of long hours. And you just want to give each customer that first-hand experience, that first-class experience, And so far we've been able to, but if I ever had to struggle, I know Multinet has given me the tools to really make sure that I'm able to cope.
Okay, then we have people that are, quick to just run to their banks, the banks that they bank with, to apply for that home loan. Yeah. And some were even told and advised that go to 3 or 4 more banks to get a better, you know what I mean? Yeah. So how many banks should one apply to? And are there any effects if you maybe apply for more than one bank?
Yeah. So basically, we are able to apply to 7 different banks. So it's the 4, it's the 4 main major banks, and then it's SL Home Loans, and then if you fit the qualifying criteria, you can go to Investec and HIP. So those are the seven banks that we apply for. We actually have a platform which we call Lucid. So before we do your bond application, we're able to check what your credit score is at before applying to those banks without it affecting you. So it won't bring your score down. It won't affect your score. It won't leave a footprint, no inquiries. So we are able to check what your score is without it affecting you, so that when we do apply to the banks, then you're good to go.
So say someone is declined, right?
Yeah.
At one bank, and they'd really like to buy a property with VTC or any other property for that case. Do you help them?
Yes.
Fix their credit score?
Yeah.
Do you charge them a fee at that as well? What do you do to ensure that they fix their credit score and you get them on track and you get them their dream home?
So again, because we partnered with Lucid is our third bureau party consent partners. Okay. So because we are partnered with them, they are able to rehabilitate customers. So if you have a customer who doesn't have a good credit record, we are able to send their record to them, and they will make contact with the customer and say, listen, for the next couple of months, this is what you need to do. And those customers, is on the customer side then to ensure that they follow those steps correctly. And then in 3-4 months' time, depending on what Lucid advise, they are able to work with them to rehabilitate their scores. Okay,
and what are some of the things that a bank looks at? The reason why I'm asking you this is that, say, people love planning. So there's someone that wants to plan towards buying the property, right? So they're trying to fix their credit score. They're trying to fix this. They're trying to fix that. What are some of the things that they should avoid in preparation for them buying that property? What are things that the banks look at on those statements? Well, you did mention that, they need to see if you're spending correctly, if you can pay, and all of those things. But what are some of the things that they need to deal with, maybe fix, before they can start the process of buying property?
So there's actually 2 parts to this, to that question. One, the one thing that you don't want to go into, for instance, is too many personal loans. Now, the problem with that is when you have 1 or 2 is good, that's all fine. But if you have too many short-term loans and personal loans, the first thing the banks ask is, okay, are you placing more reliance on a personal loan to service your monthly commitments? Why are you constantly asking for more funds, more personal loans? That is a red flag to the banks. They query that all the time, is why there's so many personal loans. And then I would also say overspending. If you know that you get a certain income, and you now go and you are spending 75% of your income on a nice car or something to that extent, you want to be able to make sure that your ratios in terms of what you are spending is correct.
Sure. You said spending. I hope it doesn't include those little coffee stops. And do they look at that? Like, are they that detailed in looking at?
Yeah, they do look at your bank statements. The banks, that's what we also do. So before we submit, we actually look at your bank statements, and we make sure that we will ask you, listen, we see that you do your hair and nails every single month. Is it really necessary that you do that every single month? Yeah. Or if you see a grocery bill of like 20,000 Rand or something to that extent, you think to yourself, can you maybe shop, let's say, at like a, I know this sounds bad, but something more affordable than your higher end, yeah.
So let's talk about interest rates. I know that that's something that causes, a decline in bond applications. And that's why people rather go to or resort to cash buying, taking out huge amounts of loans to buy the property cash because of that fear. So firstly, I would ask you, what exactly causes the decline in bond application at banks?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of aspects that can cause a decline. Just to mention a few, your first thing is whether there's arrears noted on your name. There are so many customers that apply for bond finance that know they've got arrears listed against their name. Unless you've got a paid up letter, the banks won't lend. Because if you can't maintain your payments now, what assurance are you giving the banks that you are able to service a 20 to 30 year loan to debt? So that is one thing, as arrears is a no-go. Other things is like being blacklisted. You have under debt review, you've got a judgment against your name. Those things as well, the banks don't lend to unless you've got a clearance certificate for that. I mean, you might be a customer that has a good credit score. You might be a customer that all of a sudden your affordability checks out. Sure. But the bank still has your internal profile, your banking history. So they can see whether there's bad debt written off. They're able to see how you've been conducting yourself internally with the bank. And if they see that you haven't been conducting yourself well, they can also say, sorry, you're too much of a risk to lend to. And then, other things we've mentioned is a bad credit score, affordability, or even things such as unpaid items on your bank statements due to the lack of funds.
Geez, so it's important that you communicate your debit orders with,
very important.
So if I know I'm guilty of that at times where I know, okay, this specific money will come in at that date, and I don't communicate that with my bank, and it, unfortunately at times affects me. So I think that's important to take note of. Don't be like, hey, don't be like it, don't be cat. What are some of the things that the banks look at during a bond application?
So they actually look at 5 important aspects. They look for sustainability, which means the ability to maintain consistency over time. Okay. Credibility, the quality of being trusted. Affordability. Then they look for verification, which means that your paperwork need to agree with one another. And then 5th, your paperwork is very important. So that all is in line with the National Credit Act.
Sure. Okay. You talked about in line with the paperwork, and so there's no fraud there.
Yeah. We have
2 last questions. Firstly, I would like to ask you, how much do people need to pay?
It's free of charge.
It's free of charge.
Yeah.
It's free of charge. It's not a scam. It is free of charge. Okay. It's Multinet. It is free of charge. Secondly, last one. Why should someone use a bond originator and not a private bank? Or what are some of the advantages?
Well, it's really up to you as a customer. But what I basically say to customers is all comes down to choice. How many choices do you have to make sure that you're getting the best out of your bank? So now, if you use a private banker, usually the help that they give is system generated, because private bankers don't have lending mandates. So they're able to go through the same process as we do, but they do have that benefit of looking on your internal profile. Okay. But again, their help is system generated. Other thing is sometimes the credit decision isn't challenged enough. So if they get feedback from credit, it's here we go, Yeah. Or the other aspect is that you only have one offer. You don't have anything to compare it to. So when you use a mortgage originator, you at least have all these banks you can apply to. And then as well, that by applying to so many banks, you have chances of getting more offers and more interest rates you can compete with. Yes. So, and that's what we do is we take the interest rates from each bank and we basically negotiate between the banks for the best interest rate for you. Negotiate that. Yeah.
The middleman.
The middleman, yeah.
I'm trying to reduce the offer. I love it.
Yeah.
Andrea, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
How can people contact you?
Well, they could always call into Multinet and ask for me, or if they're very interested in purchasing a home at VTC, they'll be put directly in contact with me by the VTC team.
Thank you so much. Hope you join us again soon.
Thank you.
That's it from us today. Don't forget to like and share this podcast. Please do share your views as well. We'd like to hear from you. We don't want to talk and not hear what you'd like for us to talk about. Also, I'd like to have one of you join us in studio so you can also share your experiences. That's it from us, and see you again soon. Bye. Say bye.
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 Bye. Yeah.
Bye.